Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed, and we are making sure my compressor's set right. So, we are, at the end of the book, we've been exploring the dialectic and how it is a tool for communication, tool for understanding, reflects the structure of reality as a tool for meditation. It might even be the archetype of meditation if it's the artistic or skillful use of our thinking. Now, is there something beyond thinking? That question. We're going to talk about that question. Also, we've been recognizing that the nature of human problems is belief, in that all human actions come from a state of mind. So any human action that's bad, we can take back to a more fundamental cause, and that's how we solve problems. We address the cause, a state of mind. We've been reflecting on the fact that human beings seek their good by definition. That's a fundamental principle that leads us to the good self or the one self. We desire our good. We seek to grasp reality into a oneness through understanding, or whatever cognitive function, even our sense perceptions bring things into a oneness. And we want to make sure it's true. We seek the truth of our goals. So 3 fundamental forces of the soul: desiring the good, reasoning into a oneness, and our outward activities are searching for the good, or the true. We want our true goals. We don't want to be deceived. Now that's interesting because those 3 motivating forces we call the soul. That's what we call the soul. But also, we've been talking about the end of each of them is the same place: the one self, the good self, and the true self. So, we are seeking our good by definition. And so we have to decide what the good is and how to reach it. Now, if we understand the good, we are seeking the good. However, we can be tricked to seek bad things when our perception of the good is based on belief. Belief can trick you into thinking a bad thing is good, and so you do the bad thing thinking it's good because that's what belief can do. Having a fundamental false belief about what is the nature of the good, or ultimately the self. That's called the pathologos. That's a class of belief. But in principle, in general, beliefs are necessary to scam people, which is why scammers target the right-wing conservatives. That's why Trump, his base here, tries to appeal to religious people, Christians. That's why Netanyahu tries to appeal to Jewish religious people. Because believers are trained to reject understanding and accept belief, which comes from someone else. Authority. Now, while that's true in principle, we can break down belief and understanding into more specific parts. Now, this is an important principle because, for example, we talk about philosophical midwifery as a part within the 4 aspects of the dialectic. But technically, philosophical midwifery could also be used for everything. In that, let's look at it on the board. So there are certain terms like wisdom or philosophical midwifery or belief that can be used as a differently depending on where you're using them. Let's use philosophical midwifery as a example. Philosophical midwifery, a term coined by Socrates because his mother was a midwife of babies. Socrates says, my art is even better because I help people give birth to ideas. True ideas that we are born to give birth to, that are part of our purpose for being here, that are true ideas that lead us to our highest excellence, as well as false ideas. What we've been reading is the highest expression of human functioning and the highest state of philosophy. Well, humans is to do that with guidance from your dreams. Dream analysis. Which can do both. High states and low states of mind about our true ideas and false ideas that cause our problems. We've also been seeing as part of the art is sharing this with others. Practicing your art with your friends. Creating content, writing dialogues. Mythology. Mythology is telling stories representing the principles of philosophical midwifery. Being a midwife. Now, what we can also see is, while that's true for philosophical midwifery in that sense, when we want to distinguish the dialectic, which is the art of dialectic, how we structure our thought and conversation and communication. When we want to break down or distinguish the true from the false, we say philosophy is the use of our dialectic to what we've been reading about the true nature of self and reality. And then we say philosophical midwifery is the term used to talk about the false. So the same word is used in two contexts here. The same can be said of wisdom. We use the word wisdom as an ultimate goal, but we can say there is the virtue of wisdom, which is something that you don't have, it's something you practice. Because the virtues you don't have to be ready for, it's a practice. You just start. Wisdom, of course, following the logos, being ruled by the logos, naming according to the logos. So whatever we've been learning, using it as a ruling or guiding force. Courage, to keep in mind the dangers of the pathologos and the significance of the logos. And following the logos in spite of your feeling that your beliefs or your pathologos beliefs are true. Temperance, keeping your cool in the ups and downs. Temperance. And doing it at all times. Therefore, doing your specific function at all times. We've been talking about it in this book, bringing about a state of being. So, justice. So wisdom is a virtue. We've also been defining wisdom as a state of mind, and functioning of the second hypothesis, the brilliant light of pure being, and the third, dianoia, understanding. And of course, we have a question: is there a wisdom of self? So when we talk about belief, versus understanding, we say this is the fundamental nature of human beings. We come in carrying certain false beliefs we are here to address. By virtue of being born into a family, you have to, children accept, learn certain beliefs about themselves and reality to survive. Because our parents play priest, king, capitalist of the family. So they get to cosplay the Noah, and they have a certain way of being. And if the child is allowed to be free and explore and develop and learn, then every member of the family has to spend time having fun, reflecting on their old way of being, reflecting, changing their old way of being, adapting, learning, growing. And be fucked if any parents are going to do that. My house, my rules. I know what's true. My job is to pretend like I'm a Noah, the same way my dad did to me, same way his dad did to him, same way his, all the way back to the cave. That's the nature of human ignorance. It's the root cause of human problems. An allegiance to cosplaying the Noah, through belief. And any idiot can do that. You don't have to do any work, you don't have to do any self-reflection, you don't have to do any reading, you don't have to do any dream analysis. You can just say, well, I believe it, and so it's true. This is the root cause of human problems because our politicians, our religious authorities, capitalists, the people who have claimed power and rulership in our culture and our species are these fuckers. Pretending to be a Noah. Now notice, we seek to be the Noah. We want to know the good. We want to know the self. Knowing is part of wisdom. Second hypothesis, knowing the good as well as understanding. Knowing it as a whole, understanding its parts. So you can use it. Notice, belief doesn't have either. No art. No art can't benefit. Can only do harm. Can only do harm. Can only do harm. That's why it is the root cause of human problems. This psyche motivates all kinds of harmful actions. And people who are following this cosplayer can be tricked into thinking the bad thing, murdering Palestinians, bombing Iranians, concentration camps for immigrants. That bad thing is actually a good thing because their priest told them, their political leader told them, their billionaire told them. Believing someone else. And we always ask the question, if you understood it for yourself, why would you need to believe? So in principle, belief is required to make the bad appear. Appearing is the key word, good. And as we seek the good, we can understand the root cause of human problems, the appearance or cosplaying. Therefore, belief exists in the world of appearances. shapes and colors, appearances, or the physical world. Shapes and colors. Shapes and colors. Now we can contrast that with understanding, which can lead to actual knowing. Leads to or is based upon actual knowing. Now, this is a key distinction. It can be based upon. In other words, we can develop understanding by reading the text that we are reading without having that second hypothesis experience of divine luminosity where we actually know reality as a oneness. It leads to that experience. It's our preparation. It's the spiritual method. And because it's based on actual knowing, it should be rational. Follow reason. Same thing? Almost. Should be verifiable. Which is inexperience. In other words, it should work. Now, we don't mean just physical experience, because that will keep you trapped in the world of appearances. Knowing itself is an experience, but a non-physical one. People have those all the time. And you might have them in your dreams. And a key word, principles. They follow principles. Principles. It's understanding is based on not because my mummy said so or because the holy book says so. They are principles. Principles are important because they are universal. So the things that we are discovering as human beings that are necessary for a good society, universal healthcare, universal wealth equality, universal income, universal access to food and housing, all of the things opposed by believers who say they are the chosen people, they get to survive, the other people get to have no houses, so we bomb them. They get to have no security, so we bomb them. They get no healthcare, so we bomb the hospitals. They get to have no income, so they are the working class, the slaves. Who says that? Believers. People who are motivated by belief, fascists, grifters, con artists, sadists, belief-based rulers who are cosplaying the Noah. And as there is no art, no knowledge of the good, just the appearance, and therefore no understanding, their model of the good is not based on understanding of the good. Therefore, no benefit. They can't benefit. They should not be leaders. Imagine the leader of your football team not having any knowledge of the ideal of football or understanding of the parts of football. It would be absurd. Imagine your doctor having no knowledge of the ideal of the human body and no understanding of his parts. He couldn't ever be able to help you, even if he wanted to. Benefit, no benefit. Therefore, without any benefit, how do you function or cosplay the knower? This is an interesting idea because this is based on, this is the idea of comedy as well, imitation. You can see people, content creators, streamers, TV personalities who pretend to be a douchebag, pretend to be a dick. That's their persona, gets them clicks. How many of them imitate a good person? Zero. How many comedians imitate a good person? How many content creators imitate a good person? None. Can't imitate a good person. You'd just be being good. And for the good person to function in a good way, they have to be functioning according to actual knowing. And knowing, of course, is the experience of truth. The truth of reality. It's a non-physical experience of the truth of reality. Truth. Notice, truth does not fall under belief. It's not there. Nothing to do with truth. Belief has nothing to do with truth. It's pretending to be the knower. It can make the bad appear good. Therefore, it's the cause of human problems. Root cause of death and destruction and human problems. Problems based on appearances or shapes and colors. No knowing of the good, no understanding of the good. So our question is, how does a belief-based person, king, clergy, parent, capitalist, how do they appear as good? So with no understanding or knowledge, what's their model? No benefit, but can harm. So, while actual knowingness is a feeling because it's a state of being and a state of mind and actual experience, and understanding leads to that, is based on that, meaning if you've had that experience, it becomes your model. We hold on to that. In a similar way, we hold on to beliefs, but in the proper way, holding on to the truth, our high experiences, our inside experiences. Or if you're not there yet, that's why we read Socrates and Pierre. And even Plato has experiences of knowledge. It's based upon knowledge, which is the truth of reality. Knowing, or nous, this is why we need the word nous. Nous. Nous means the direct apprehension apprehension of truth. The truth of reality. That's why we need the Greek word nous, because our English doesn't acknowledge that. We don't have a distinction between regular knowledge or this kind of knowledge. That's what we're talking about today. So therefore, without being based on knowledge and understanding of the good or reality, can only do harm. Therefore, cosplaying the knower plus this, so can only do harm, plus cosplaying the knower equals, just on the bottom. If you can only do harm and you add to that your desire to cosplay the knower, what is the feeling state taken as a surrogate for what it means to be strong or powerful or good or knowing? So feeling state they seek or desire a desired feeling state as a surrogate. This is why it's important to follow the logos. Don't doubt yourself. Well, don't doubt yourself. Catch yourself when you're doubting yourself. Take a note of that and put it aside for your midwife talk. Because if you play along with the normies, the mob, the believers, you're adapting their model of excellence. Shitting on each other. Gossip. Putting people down. Finding what you love and making fun of it. Or destroying it. Or sabotaging it. Hey, but it's a sign of affection, is it? Or are you taking this doing harm as a desired feeling state or surrogate for love? Surrogate for knowing. Now, that experience of knowing is the experience for metaphysics. So, everything for knowing, that's what we represent as the gods. So that would involve beauty, strength, power. Throw love in there if you want. Love. Goodness. Excellence. These are the gods. The aspects of that experience of knowing that we can understand. So the goodnesses that we seek, this is why knowing the good, knowing goodness, love, power, strength, beauty, excellence, justice, fairness. These are the eidos, the word that is misrepresented as forms in modern academia, or the aspects of pure being, of the brilliant light, of pure being, experienced as nous, or the second hypothesis. So this is what they take. What is it? Inflicting harm because they can't benefit. Then how do you know you're a strong guy? Well, you kill people, torture people in Epstein Island, drop bombs on children in Iran, genocide Palestinian, starve Palestinian people to death, enslave humanity as a billionaire, make housing inaccessible to everyone, gouge people through essential necessities, healthcare, food. Yes, human beings who are doing harm are taking that infliction of harm as a surrogate for knowing, because they're operating through a psychic function called belief. That's called sadism. Sadism. To desire this infliction of harm as a mark of knowing. Notice, it itself is an example of the bad taken as the appearance of good. So this is an example of, or the fundamental example of, the appearance of the good itself, which is apprehended through knowing, taken as the bad. Whereas on the other hand, understanding is actually based on the good and leads to the good. Which we call nous. Rational, reason, verifiable in experience. Both in the physical world, if it's understanding, it should be reflected as above, so below. So we can use that principle as above, so below. In other words, the experience, rationality, and reason should apply to your experience of nous and the physical world. So verifiable in those kinds of experiences. And principles. So, for example, an example of that being able to be verified even in the physical world, we are seeing necessary for the health and flourishing of our species are things like universal healthcare. We are seeing in how it plays out in the United States of America, the extreme, tragic devastation and sadistic fuckery of a society that won't give universal healthcare to its people for the profits of belief-based kings, clergy, and capitalists. We can see it. It's obvious as all fuck. Universal healthcare is necessary. We're also seeing, played out everywhere in the world, universal housing is necessary. Landlords shouldn't be a thing. Universal food access is necessary. Price gouging for necessary universal human needs shouldn't be a thing, etc., etc. What we are seeing is universal. Principles are universal. So that example, universal healthcare, universal health, we're seeing what happens when we have a billionaire class, the Epstein class. The horrific things they do. Universal, by the way, it's hard to lure vulnerable people, children, to Epstein Island if they have enough money to live. Universal wealth equality. It's hard to abuse people through having power over them through money if everyone has equal money. Very, very easy to see for anyone who cares to look. So the question is, why won't we look? Our loyalty to belief. I believe that our family is better. We get to have slaves because we are the Jews, we are the Christians, we are the Musks, and we Musks can kill people in our diamond mines. We are the Bezoses. We get to abuse our staff, etc., etc. Principles are universal. Principles are true. Principles need to be universally applied, not just for my team, which is belief. Universally applied. Which then, universal principles, universally applied, universally benefits. Therefore, the root cause of human problems, belief-based functioning from our psyche, and we all know that before we do an action, like a bad action or a good action, we have a state of mind. Comes from a human state of mind. So if you can address the state of mind, you can address not a specific bad thing, but all bad things. And as we seek the good, nous or understanding based on nous is the truth of what is good. So you can't scam people through understanding, which is why grifters, con artists, terrible people always target the right wing. The Asmongolds of the world, the Ben Shapiro's of the world, the Joe Rogans of the world, the Donald Trumps and the Netanyahus of the world, the Hitlers of the world. They target the right wing and religious people who are programmed from a young age to accept belief and fear understanding. And the good people are those that participate in understanding. It's easy to imitate believers or bad people, difficult to imitate Socrates, difficult to imitate a good person. You can't do it. How do you do it? How do you imitate a good person? Oh, you be good. Hang on a second, to be good, I have to participate in understanding. If you can participate in understanding, why weren't you in the first place? It's your block from being able to participate in understanding that makes you not as good as that person you're imitating. That's why you can't imitate good people. Requires understanding. Requires a care for other people that you can actually function through understanding to benefit them. Sentence didn't quite make sense, but you get what I mean. You have to become good. And if you are becoming good, why would you choose to be bad? If you could be good, why would you choose bad? If you could eat a good sandwich, why would you choose to eat a moldy sandwich?
It's great because it's stupid, but it gets a lot of attention, mate.
Right. Don't like the accent, mocking me, but it's stupid. Might get your clicks. I eat 10 moldy sandwiches. Oh my God, he's done. So that's what we're seeing. And what we're seeing is the root fundamental belief that keeps us entrenched in this cognitive function of belief, the pathologos. While understanding leading to nous, logos, following the logos. So all of those virtues that we looked at a second ago, they're all to do with the logos, being ruled by the logos, seeking the logos and having an awareness of the danger, the most dangerous force in the soul is the pathologos, and following the logos and not your pathologos, even if the pathologos feels true or is comfortable or is familiar, or all your friends are like that. All your friends put each other down for affection or whatever. Why? Temperance, keeping your cool as you seek the logos. People hassle you, and they will. As we've been reading, Socrates and Jesus pointed out and had a laugh because of the way they were murdered. The further you climb up the ladder of the logos, the more people who aren't at that level and will have their pathologos triggered. So the more you participate in logos or understanding and have that as your way of being, the more likely you are to trigger the dummies, the most sick people. So when people, seemingly out of nowhere, seemingly for no reason, seemingly out of the blue and completely unprovoked, be a dick to you, be gross to you, and seem to enjoy it, sadistic, follow the logos, keep your cool, use the logos to understand it, desire the logos even then. Temperance. I wonder what this is showing me. I wonder what self and mind, or self through mind, is trying to show me through this kind of interaction. I'm not going to get it from them, of course. They are enslaved by their problem. But why is it coming up in this dream that I'm having, in this tangent or daydream I'm having, in this life experience I'm having, in this relationship I'm having? Apply the logos. Because the only other alternative is apply a pathologos. That person, it must be because he's a non-Christian. Or woman, I'm an incel now because it was a woman. That's just a belief, a harmful belief that you accept because of your own root causal belief in self and reality called the pathologos. So there's only two options. That's why we can understand all human problems and all human excellence with just two terms, because those are the two options. Now, while these are the two options, as we saw with the term midwifery, which has a different meaning depending on whether you're using it as the name of a class or a member of the class, same with wisdom. There are different kinds of wisdom, but you can use the word wisdom to apply to all of them if you wanted to. In general, we can do the same for the general terms belief and understanding. So for instance, if you say, if you start to recognize, that religious group have their leaders seeking a bad thing because they believe it. And when we provide evidence and reason, they say, I don't care about evidence and reason as to why what we're doing is harmful. It's our belief. And their followers are willing to murder human beings and destroy the planet we share because it's their belief. And we go, hang on a second, maybe these Armageddon-seeking people who want to destroy the world shouldn't be allowed to rule our society. Time of recording, the American military who have the nuclear weapons and are the huge inflictor of death and destruction across the world, have said to their foot soldiers, we are lighting the pyre, the signal fire for the end of the world. We want to destroy the world so Jesus comes back. Maybe they shouldn't be in control of our society. The ones wanting to fucking kill everyone. Now, we can say that, well, let's get rid of those beliefs. Yeah, good luck. There's the three of them: Abrahamic, Judaism, and Islam. The Abrahamic religions. And also the weird, wacky, crazy ones. The death cult ones. The Epstein Island ones. Get rid of those religious beliefs. How about all of them? That's the step to causes. Not just all religious beliefs. What about belief in general? We don't allow doctors to do their work according to belief. Mechanics, pilots. How about any rulership position shouldn't be based on belief? And then some people will say, well, aren't some beliefs good? And the way that we use the belief in our society, no, they're not. Well, let's break down the classes of belief to see this for ourselves. Belief. Now, some people say, well, how about scientific belief? I'm not a scientist, but I might believe my teacher. Scientific belief. Now we can say this is based on understanding. I'm not believing the mechanic based on belief, but I'm trusting his understanding. So technically, this is a belief, but also technically, it's actually following understanding. The same way we read. Well, you might not have understanding yet. We haven't mastered the dialectic yet, but we're getting there. Got to start somewhere. So I kind of trust in understanding, just as understanding is a trusting in knowledge until you get knowledge, or following knowledge, a trusting and following knowledge, or in this case, understanding. Now, this also applies to another subclass, simple belief. As a subclass. So like a mechanic. Right, let's stay there. So simple belief, similar. I'm not the scientist, but I'm trusting the mechanic or whatever. And then of course we have supernatural beliefs. That can't be proven with evidence and reason, whereas understanding can. Yes to evidence and reason. Can't prove that Mary was a virgin. Just have faith. Or disproven. We know the world is more than 6,000 years old, but believe it anyway. If you're a Christian. Prejudice? Beliefs? Disproven by evidence and reason? Sexism, racism, those sorts of things. Things appealed to by King's clergy. Hey, the Browns, says the King Trump. Kill them and I get your money. Hey, the blacks, enslave them, says the priest, bishop, whoever. So, appealed to by those claiming their authority through supernatural beliefs. And of course, the worst kind, pathologos. They are about self and reality. And by reality, of course, that also means those aspects of reality, the eidos, beauty, justice, your false idea of justice that informs how you function in the world unjustly, your false idea of beauty, people that you're attracted to, the relationships you end up in, goodness, the thing you seek. They're about self and reality, and they're unsuspected. And they are the zombie virus. It's the zombie virus that the root cause of human problems. Keeps you chained to fate. So, colloquially speaking, or as the name of the set, we're talking about these because when we say understanding, we mean scientific understanding. That's what we mean when we evidence and reason. That's what we mean in English when we say the word understanding. There's one more. Above this list of 4, because simple belief is kind of a subclass of scientific belief. I have the simple belief my car needs petrol because I'm trusting my mechanic. And the mechanic has the scientific belief because he actually sees the evidence and reason. Because he went to mechanic school. There's one more. Axioms. This is required for evidence and reason. These are principles. But can they be proven with evidence and reason? because evidence and reason seems to be the standard, right? Standard for what makes scientific belief different from the other three. Notice our 5 list again. Isn't that interesting? Remember the map? There is 3 there's the activity of the bricks being builded on by the builder. There's our 3. There is a paradigm that stands above the rest, the blueprints, and then there's another level that's different than all of that. Billy living in the house, the first cause, the model cause, the doer, the doing, and the done cause. The 5 causes, the 5 causes of everything. And of course, the application to the logos, or our human purpose, to participate as a soul in the activity of the dialectic with a dialectician. Ultimately, that nous experience is the knowing, or the model, or the paradigm, because though the organization and the nature of the eidos within knowledge is the paradigm or map that the dialectician uses and holds on to in the activity of dialectic with a pregnant party as our ideal human function. And of course, the final goal is to return to the self, because that's a mastery of the self logos that we can use to return to the self logos. The self, to know the self with logos, with understanding. That kind of wisdom, the knowing and understanding of the self. And what's knowing and understanding required for? Art. Therefore, we are returning to the root source, the sacred source of all, with an art in our back pocket. So axioms. Axioms are required. Why? Well, to do scientific belief, you need simple principles like, if I add 2 plus 2, I got to make sure the result is bigger than the 2 things I'm adding together. Or if I have A equals to B and I have C equals to B, then I have to know that A and A is equal to C. Let me give you another example of that principle. If you're driving your car, you have to take a driver's test to make sure you qualify. You have some understanding of the road rules. So, you're told, hey, look at that green light over there. You stop, A, when you see that green light. But then you're driving your car and you see another green light. C, another green light. In order to participate in human society, in rational thought needed for you to rationally be able to drive your car. This is why cats and dogs don't drive cars, although mice are driving cars now, but not on the road. They have little mice mobiles. I've seen those on the internet. Alright, cool. They love them. You have this new green light, C, and you recognize, oh, that is of equal value. It's equal to this first green light, B. C is equal to B. Therefore, if stop is equal to B, green light 1, and green light 2 is equal to green light 1, so if A is equal to B and C is equal to B, then this C must also be equal to A. This idea of stopping has to also apply to this new green light that I'd never seen before, because it's equal to that first green light. And things that are equal to each other are equal to what they're equal to. So I will also stop at this new green light. So that's an example of two axioms. Can you prove it? And we're going to have a fun thought experiment of that in a moment. So it kind of stands apart. But notice, colloquially speaking, it's beyond even understanding. If you can't prove it, but it's required for understanding. But technically, you could still follow it. Well, you have to follow it until you get into philosophy as a belief. So technically, these two axioms and scientific or simple beliefs are beliefs, but that's not what we mean when we use the word, usually, as a general thing. We don't say, you have to, I don't know, put gas in your petrol tank, petrol in your car because I believe it. No, you'll be able to know because we understand that why it has to. You say, well, I don't have understanding. I'm just believing that guy. Yes, but you could have understanding. You're trusting the scientific understanding. So normally we're referring to this class. Supernatural beliefs can't be proven. I have to just believe someone. Prejudice beliefs, disproven by evidence and reason, but I believe it anyway because I'm a racist or a sexist or whatever. And pathologos beliefs, not only disproven by evidence and reason, but they're unsuspected, they're about self and reality, and they're the root cause of human problems and keep you chained to fate. Keeping you stuck in or manipulated by prejudice beliefs and supernatural beliefs that reflect your pathologos, preventing you from climbing the ladder, getting into understanding and reasoning in the physical world, and then realizing that even the physical world follows principles that are prior to it. Now you're into philosophy. So we have these two as regular understanding. So again, technically they're beliefs because they could be objects of belief as a stepping stone, but in and of themselves, they're not beliefs. Evidence and reason isn't a belief. You have the evidence for it. You can prove it. You can demonstrate it. You can explain it to someone else. You can build a house with it. You can do surgery based on it. Regular understanding. Hey, notice the Epstein bullshit. People cosplaying as dentists and shit. They have no knowledge. They haven't gone to school, but they think they're billions of dollars and their power over others because they manipulate people's religious beliefs. The Epstein class, they don't believe that shit. Religious stuff. They're lying to the other people who do believe it. They don't, well, they have their own prejudices, of course. Well, maybe some of them have their own religious beliefs. But they manipulate the religious beliefs of others. They manipulate the prejudices of others. Nationalism, white race, all that shit. And all of that is fundamentally a manipulation of people's pathologos. So, regular understanding is scientific belief. But our next question is, What kind of understanding is this? Axioms. Principles. Axioms. Principles. What exactly are principles? If these are principles needed to do mathematics, you can't do 2 and 2 is 4 unless you accept the principle that 4 is bigger than 2. This is a fundamental thing that will always be true in reality. Can you prove it? How? But you need to accept them to play, just as you need to accept stop is equal to this green light on my driver's license exam, but this green light I see in the real world looks very much like that green light in the exam. Therefore, if that is equal to that, then it also is equal to what it was equal to, stopping my car. You can't drive a car. You can't participate in reality unless you accept these axioms. But what are they? Where are they? How are they? And if we're saying that human life is supposed to be based on universal principles, universally applied for our universal benefit, how do we get them? What are them? What are they? What are all of the principles? Are there more than just those two? Is there a principle for justice that applies to all just societies and all relationships and all everything? Is there a principle of beauty that has scope over everything? Principles. Let's use a fancy word. We've been using the word nous for knowledge. Let's use the word dianoia. Dianoia. Where's my coffee? Stretch. Sound drop.
If you don't know, now you know.
I have a sickness for the thickness.
I have a sickness to turn my fan up.
I'm too pure.
Dianoia. Let's use the word dianoia. What are we doing with the word dianoia? Notice, already we have used the word down here. The word nous to distinguish the direct apprehension of a non-physical wholeness of reality that has the principles that have the scope over reality. We're using nous to distinguish that from our regular idea of knowing, which might mean knowing something physical. I know how to do a kickflip on my wheelie board. Similarly, so just as we have the word nous to distinguish what we call a non-physical or mind itself, or being, let's say brilliant light, because it's important to remind ourselves that it is experienced as a brilliant light. So when and if you see it, and by the way, apparently we see it when we die. So maybe worth training our ability to understand, recognize, and go into it in greater depth. What's the word used in the text? Not tolerate, but fuck, there's a word he uses. Those that can withstand, not withstand. It means withstand. Oh, I should find it. To that extent, to the extent to which you can stay in the brilliant light of it being experienced when you die, to that extent, your character is better in your reincarnation. But of course, what we want to learn how to do in philosophy is to not just dwell into it and come back into our physical bodies, but to go through it to know the self, which of course is a training for our physical death when we have, well, as above, so below. Then we might suspect we could have the possibility of reincarnating again into the physical form to learn about the logos and pathologos once again, into Hades, what we're calling Hades, the physical world where injustice runs rampant, as we've been describing. Every second there's a terrible injustice being inflicted in this world. Hades. And those of us who are interested in truth, understanding, and benefit are rare birds in this world. Do you want to come back here, or do you want to do your job? Perfect the logos, remove any false ideas that are false. You don't need them, and then you think you need them, but you don't need them, and they're false, and they're harmful, and the cause of your problems. Do you want to keep them because you're used to them? Stockholm syndrome of the soul? Or do you want to remove them, return to the self with the self logos, and meet Socrates where he is, waiting with better men who've completed their work here? Gods, spirits, who are fellow guides and adventurers on their greater journey beyond reality. Different kind of a thing. Now, if you were to traverse through higher dimensions of things beyond even reality as we know it, would you want some fucker capitalist trying to hurt you for his personal profit in a dimension that's far more intense and real and immediate and profound? Oh, fucking course you don't. Could you imagine that? Like, we have an expression here, nightmare blunt rotation. Imagine Trump or Netanyahu or Hitler or a priest or an imam or a rabbi in a blunt rotation. Fucking hell. It would be hell, because we know these people are liars and scammers and grifters and terrible people. And if we're having a blunt, we are more in the moment, we're more honest, we're more free, more open. And these fuckers take advantage of us. We don't want to be free and open around them. So we have an expression, nightmare blunt rotation. Now imagine that, but it's not just blunt rotation, it's even more profound state of being. Would you want these fuckers there on your team? No, of course you wouldn't. So we might be able to use that as an analogy to wonder about why it is our purpose, according to Socrates, and our own reasoning. Notice, we're not just believing Socrates. We are ourselves developing an understanding, regular understanding of why that would be the case, but it's not regular understanding. It's based on principles that we can understand, but because they are non-physical principles and regular understanding refers to scientific belief, dianoia. We are practicing dianoia, For us, it starts as a kind of trust for us to even want to open the book, but our participation in understanding why it's the case that these things are true, and this imagination of a nightmare blunt rotation, and therefore this would be the qualification to get into the club, into the nightclub. You don't want troublemakers in the nightclub of the self or the soul or the higher soul. That's dianoia. Developing our own understanding based on these eternal necessary principles that are verified not in evidence of the physical world, but evidence of in the evidence or verified in experience and reasoning of the non-physical world. Non-physical world. Or mind, or being, or experienced as nous. Whereas regular understanding, we are seeing same, but evidence, reason of the physical world. That's the difference. So, just as you can say, well, there could be a scientific belief as a stepping stone to your regular understanding of being a mechanic or a pilot or whatever, so too, axioms are the necessary principle for there to be scientific understanding in the physical world. Philosophy is, again, you have to accept them as a belief, but normally speaking, colloquially speaking, we don't mean axioms or principles, and we don't mean scientific beliefs when we use the word belief. This is a technical breakdown, just as the word wisdom and midwifery has a different name when you're talking about it as a class. And the difference is because it's not belief. The ruling principle isn't belief in scientific belief. The ruling principle is the scientist you're trusting. Now, notice Fauci or whatever has medical understanding about vaccines. The religious, the conservatives, and the capitalists are trying to teach the people to not trust scientific belief, so they can be scammed and abused by the sadism of these believing capitalist conservatives and clergy to stay with under the line below regular understanding. The MAGAs, the anti-vaxxers, the racists. It's bad. It does harm. Not taking a vaccine and getting measles and dying is bad for you. That's why their thing is to get human beings to fear and doubt scientific experts. And ultimately, they want people to also reject universal principles so they can accept us versus them. They can be bombed, but we shouldn't get bombed. It would feel sad. It would be hard to live with bombs dropping, but it's okay for them. You can only accept that if you reject principles that are universal. So, in a similar way, we use the word nous. Just as nous is the word to distinguish knowing in mind itself, or the capacity of mind to turn around upon itself and know itself. That's the penultimate spiritual experience. Mind itself, second last, or ousia. From everyday knowing or physical world, knowing how to do a kickflip, physical world, colloquialisms, colloquial idea of knowing. So with capital K for nous and little k for regular knowing. So too can we do the same for understanding. Philosophy, true understanding, is upon principles. Now notice, we've been talking about rare kinds of people who want to do good in this world and love understanding. Following the logos. They like to use reason. They like to evidence. They point to studies to show what they are talking about. They're rational, but also they seek principles. That's the transition through physical world science, torturing Mother Nature so she reveals her secrets, says Bacon. Philosopher Mr. Bacon. I think it was Bacon. To true philosophy. Another thing that understanding is able to do is understand causes. It's a big one. Have you understood how your computer unless you know the causes of why it works? Can you fix a broken toaster if you don't know its cause? Are you able to solve human problems if you ignore the cause? Wealth inequality is the cause of most problems. And even prior to that, why do we not demand universal health equality as a fucking obvious standard for a species when we know what happens when idiots have more power over others? So even more fundamental to wealth equality or health equality or income equality, all of these universal principles, is our rejection of universal principles, which is belief. So even more fundamental to human problems than a rejection of universal income, universal wealth equality, universal housing is why human beings are so fucking stupid and cruel and sadistic to reject the thing that helps everyone: belief. Why? Because belief is the human cognitive function that specifically rejects understanding, which follows principles. Us versus them, Jews versus Goyim, Christians versus Muslim, the people who are going to get raptured to heaven, and the unclean who are going to go to hell with Satan. The root cause of human problems, once again, a rejection of principles, reason, verification, and causes as the root cause of human problems. So, if you are recognizing that these things happen to work in physical world evidence and physical world rationality, you can then ask the question, is there, hang on a second, universal income, universal housing, universal wealth equal? I'm using the word universal everywhere. What's its cause? So the people who are interested in physical world understanding are already participating to some degree in principles and causes. The next step is to ask, what are the principles and causes even of scientific understanding? Now we're at the realm of axioms. Why is it that universal principles applied universally benefits? Why is that a necessary standard of justice, fairness, always? So, well, there are these 1, 2, 3, 4 kinds of belief, 5 if you include axioms, 3 of which are regular beliefs. To be ruled by belief, which is always in opposition to evidence and reason. In principle, that's why beliefs are fucked. And well, it's not all beliefs. What about my belief in my mechanic? Technically, it's a belief, but really it isn't. Because the ruling force is understanding. It's not belief to believe your doctor, because you're trusting in his understanding, and understanding you could also have. He should be able to explain why it works. That's understanding. It's open to anyone who cares to look. So regular belief, supernatural beliefs can't be proven. Prejudiced beliefs disproven by evidence and reason. Pathologos beliefs also disproven by evidence and reason, but are about the self and reality, unsuspected, and the root cause of our allegiance to beliefs and the block to our understanding. So the reason why they chain us to fate, or they're the zombie virus, is because they are a blind and savage. So we use the expression, you're a dog, in a negative sense. You are loyal without reason. Savage. Loyalty to beliefs and violent, savage opposition to understanding. So very easy to see, therefore, why the root cause of human problems is belief, because all actions come from a state of mind first, so it's more causal, and human beings can either function through understanding. Of course, there are 2 classes that we're looking at, or belief, which is in opposition to that. And the reason why we oppose true and beneficial facts, understanding, reason, benefit, is because of our fundamental pathologos, which causes us to be chained to fate, blind and savage loyalty to beliefs, and in violent, savage opposition to understanding. And if that's the root cause behind our being stuck in belief and not transitioning into understanding as you're supposed to, whether you start by learning about axioms and then you get into philosophy, or learning about science and then you become a scientist, you're supposed to transition like that girl who wrote her Recently there was some meme about some brain rot Christian from a brain rot Christian family who tried to do a psychology essay, and all she did was just say, well, I believe that, and then just a whole bunch of sexist, racist nonsense, and her reason for believing it was the Bible. Now, ignoring the fact that she knows fucking nothing about the Bible. And then, of course, the conservatives and capitalists and clergy, the cause of the death and destruction in our species, picked her up as a hero. They put her on Fox News. Look at her. She says that she hates gay people because the Bible. And they didn't give her an A+. Pathologos. Why? She paid money to go to college. Why was she blocked from learning how to do a research essay, from being able to use reason and evidence, to be able to communicate it in an essay properly? Why was she blocked? So this is what we mean when we mean beliefs. And technically, you can have axioms and scientific beliefs as a class of belief, but it's not to be ruled by belief. It's a stepping stone. If you're blocked, then you're in a problem. So we're saying that the new subject, the new way of being for humanity that's necessary is philodianoia, a love of understanding. Philodianoia, like philosophy, but not love of wisdom, philosophia, love of understanding. This understanding. Now, what makes it different? Now, we've been talking about how principles have a scope over the physical world. 2 and 2 will also be, or 2 plus 2 will always be greater than who? Always. Now, we've also been talking about the eidos as things we experience in the physical world as adjectives. Again, scope. When you see a cup, it's a whole cup. But you never see whole itself. This is a whole chicken. Look at him, the chicken. Everything you see is a whole. But have you seen whole itself? Beauty, same thing. Beauty's a good one. See a beautiful puppy, see a beautiful streamer.
I'm joy maxing, okay? And if I aura mog you because I'm joy maxing so hard, that just sounds like your cortisol levels are spiking for no reason.
This is me joy maxing you and aura mogging you with my beauty.
It's awesome and it's gangster.
Oh, thank you. I guess I'm gangster. But what's the cause? Where do these principles live? Is there a filing cabinet in the clouds that Jesus has, and he pulls out the file of whole? And is there a different filing cabinet for part? Or are they all aspects of ousia, or mind itself? Is mind knowing itself as mind, which we are saying is also the paradigm or blueprints for reality, everything that will unfold in time, and all of the principles that we use through time? How can that one thing be a model? How can that one blueprints of the house contain everything that the builders need? Aspects. Therefore, when we say it's verified in reason and experience, the reasoning that we are doing is philosophy, and the experience is this. The reasoning is breaking it down into its aspects, the intellectual reflection on the highest experience humans can have, our peak experience, to recognize it has fundamental aspects, each of which have their own vitality, their own kind of being, their own force, and their own functioning in the world of mind and in the physical world. Beauty. Is it a beautiful experience? Yes, because that's where the word philosophy comes from. Love of wisdom. If this is the wisdom experience, why would we fall in love with it? It's beauty itself. It's the noun that has this scope as the causal, notice the word cause, principle, notice the word principle, right? The best people out there who are doing the best work are those who are interested in reflecting on principles that are universal. And when they look at problems, they look at the causes and also the preconditions, but causes. It's the principle and cause of everything beautiful in our physical world. A kind of axiom of a kind. Whole. Are you experiencing the greatest whole all at once? If it's everything in reality all at once, is it all of the parts? Therefore, is it the principle of whole and parts? Excellence. Are you turning about on yourself and experiencing and knowing yourself in the greatest way as your greatest potential? Is that excellence? If you have understanding of it, are you able to function even in the physical world with excellence? So all of these building blocks that we've been looking at, aspects, and as it has scope over our physical world, if we want to solve the problems of our physical world, we have to look at, well, how do you solve the problem of your toaster? Find its cause. So why are we able to understand all human problems and human purpose? Because we're engaged in dianoia, which is a following of nous. The two together, wisdom. Nous plus dianoia and OIA. Missing an O in here. Dianoia. Noia. Get some dianoia in ya. All right there. G'day, mate. Get some dianoia. Dianoia. All right. No, I want dianoia. That's my Australian accent. Wisdom. Dianoia and nous. And what we have been doing recently is recognizing that we can understand this as the second hypothesis and the third hypothesis on the map of our soul's development. And of course, our goal is to... That doesn't look right, does it? Apply understanding to nous to find its principle and cause, as above, so below. So can we also find for nous to exist, must there be a kind of principle cause, or together axiom that we must accept to play for there to be wisdom or nous? Must there be axiomatically a principle and cause for even wisdom or nous to exist? You must accept to play. So what are we saying about all of these axioms? They are principles, allowing us to drive our car without crashing, to add 2 and 2 together so we can be an architect or do sums. Can't prove them in the physical world. Necessary. So in the physical world, they must at least be a belief. Is there something necessary that we have to play with axioms? If they are themselves principles and causes, must we accept to talk about axioms the idea of principles and causes? If axioms are a bunch of different principles and causes, do we have to accept there can be such a thing as a cause? Do we have to accept there can be such a thing as a principle or something that is universally true and has scope over everything it has scope over, that is necessary for benefit? What else are we accepting to play the game? We're saying that each of these axiomatic causes or principles, or each of these terms, whole, part, beauty, justice, has their own selfhood. Beauty itself. Not beauty as an adjective, beauty as a substantive, a noun. Beauty itself, whole itself, principle itself, the cause of causes, cause itself. What are we using over and over again? Self. How do we prove it? If this is our goal, we want to reach the self. How do we reach it? Well, what we're seeing is there seems to be a double jump happening. A jump from the physical world to nous, from regular understanding to dianoia, from knowing how to do a wheelie board flip to knowing knowingness. A jump. We're also seeing that there is a principle of as above, so below. Cause, likeness. The effect is like its cause. Just as there is evidence and reason as the standard for scientific physical world understanding, there is a higher evidence, direct experience, not experience through your physical world senses that we call evidence, but direct, immediate, visceral, illuminous experience of mind itself. So a higher version above, as below, And just as we use scientific rationality or logic to prove our evidence into a formula, we have a higher degree of reason that participates on a higher level and includes axioms. So, evidence and reason, nous and dianoia, ousia, turning around to know yourself, and logos. Logos is higher than just logic. So what? Well, if we can discern the difference between looking at scientific understanding and axioms and how we perceive them, and if we're able to make that jump, then what we jump to reach axioms, we could apply a similar jump, as above, so below, to jump from axioms to knowing the self. And that's what we're after. What's the cause even of principles? We can solve all human problems by understanding the nature of principles and causes. Fundamentally, the root cause is belief in opposition to understanding, and even more causal, why do we not want to make that jump, is our blind and savage loyalty to our personal beliefs that are reflected into our pathologos, into our religious beliefs, into our allegiance to political figures that reflect our parental figures, into relationships that reflect our idea of beauty from our parental figures. In other words, the root cause of human problems is the pathologos as an axiomatic principle, and the root solution can't be done through understanding of science, because we're not looking at physical things, we're looking at psyches. Every physical thing a human does is through a human psyche, so you can't solve human problems with scientific beliefs. You can do a lot of things. Use scientific belief to recognize that we need human physical needs met universally. But what that will do is lead you to the fact, hang on a second, using science, every human being needs food. What the fuck do you know? Capitalism is fucking terrible and killing people. Religion is manipulating people and causing millions or billions of people to be slaughtered innocently. And it will bring the end of our civilization. Fine, you can do that with science. But eventually you have to ask, what am I talking about when I say principles, when I say causes? How can we understand causes? And ultimately, why do human beings reject these things that we have? Why would we rather vote for Trump than have healthcare? Why do we act against our own interests? Because beliefs make you violently and blindly loyal to beliefs. To beliefs. A class of belief called pathologos makes you loyal to beliefs, which in its definition opposes understanding. So eventually you're going to have to ask about these principles. And it's our use of logos and pathologos, which are themselves non-physical principles, that allow us to understand human problems and human excellence. Therefore, one jump, double jump. How are we able to do that? How are we able to understand all human problems and our human excellence and boil it down into two fundamental principles or causes? To be able to explain human purpose and human problems in one sentence, it has to have scope over all human societies, all human history, all relationships, all death and destruction that sweep across our land now and in the past. For us to explain all of that in a handy catchphrase that you could put on your fridge or put on a bumper sticker, and if you're doing that, give 15% of it to me, because I patent the word. I patented the sentence. Cha-ching.
AI slop.
Hang on, not AI slop.
You suck. You're ugly.
What?
How can you be This stupid. How is it legal? How is it legal?
How's it illegal for me to be stupid? Come on. I just want to get my 15%. Off the top. Yeah, get some cream off the top for daddy. I'm not gonna do that character anymore. It's a bad character. Forget about that guy.
Freaks.
Yeah, I'm a freak.
Hey, you can't say that to her. You show her some respect.
I agreed with her.
Well, that's not true because I don't think so.
Well, someone liked my impression. How can we say that? How can we use it in one sentence? How can we boil it down? We need the idea of scope, which requires the idea of principle, requiring also the idea of cause. This has to be apprehendable in some way. We've been talking about the different ways human beings apprehend: belief, scientific understanding, dianoia understanding, what we do when we read here and reflect here, nous, direct apprehension of reality. These are kinds of apprehension, so we need the principle of apprehension. Get rid of this 15%. 20%. If you're starting an Etsy store selling merch of my catchphrases. Scope, principle, cause. To be apprehendable. By who apprehends it. For you to be able to summarize in a Etsy store bumper sticker plushie, put it on a throw pillow. The nature of human problems and human excellence, pathologos and logos, to move from belief to understanding as our purpose. And you can even add in the bottom on the other side of the throw pillow. And by the way, the art of understanding that we're here to do is called the dialectic. There has to be someone saying it, apprehending it. There has to be a you. How can self know itself unless there's some apprehender of itself? How can there be something to learn unless there's a learner? How can there be a reality that can be existing and experienced unless there's an experiencer? Even beyond experience, what has to be? There has to be something that has awareness. So apprehendable. Let's throw in the word awareness. Let's make these a different color. What color? I like this one. Turquoise. My favorite color at the moment. Apprehendable. Some awareness of having apprehended it. Awareness. Right, has to be some awareness of those principles and causes. And that awareness or apprehension has to be done by something that we could call itself. What are these? The principles and causes of principles and causes. In other words, cause itself, principle itself, scope itself. Apprehension itself, awareness itself. Uh-oh. What are we doing? For there to be scope, causes, principles, apprehension, and awareness of that apprehension, what are we describing? We're describing nous. That's the experience of nous. Hang on a second. We're not describing nous. That wasn't our goal. We're saying for there to be axioms or principles, for there to be causes, for there to be awareness, for there to be apprehension of these things, for them to have their scope. We want, or we're saying, there also has to be a more primary axiom of, for scope itself has to exist, for there to be these principles with scope. Principles themselves. Scope itself. Principles themselves. Cause themselves. Apprehension itself has to exist. Awareness itself has to exist. Are we describing the self? The axiomatic nature of scope, principle, cause, apprehension, and awareness? If so, are we understanding dianoia? How Socrates is saying the first hypothesis, first cause, the self, expresses itself as the second hypothesis, pure being or nous, expressed or function. Is nous the functioning of the principle of causes with scope that is apprehendable in that experience of ousia? Is it its functioning? Or to use the term from the dialectic, the demonstration? In nous. What have we done? We've done a reasoned reflection on causes and principles and axioms without using anything physical to start off with. We've used a description of what must be in nous for it to be the paradigm as our starting point for nous to have whole and part and beauty and excellence and justice, itself functioning as the paradigm. Different color. The highest terms, the axiomatic terms of nous, for it to function as a paradigm, for beauty itself, justice itself to function as the model, the axiomatic things we take for granted for nous, cause has to be something. Well, the idea of cause has to predate it if it's a causal paradigm. For it to have scope, principle itself. All the axioms are principles. Therefore, if all the axioms are inherent within nous, every single one of them is an axiom, or a principle, or a cause. We call it eidos because Its existence isn't in a filing cabinet, a physical thing. Its existence is apprehension, ousia, mind minding mind. And it's not a dead thing. There is some vitality, some life, some intellectual recognition, awareness. For nous to be a paradigm, axiomatically, to reach nous, we went from the physical world experience to exploring its axioms. So that's the movement from scientific belief to philosophy, or from regular understanding to philosophical understanding, dianoia, axioms, which leads us to wisdom, nous and dianoia together, second and third hypothesis. Our question was, what is therefore, this is the principle of as above, so below. The jump that you made to reach here, use it as a double jump, like in Mario. Oh boy. Dooey dooey, like that. Cling cling cling, and you get the coins. When you crush a turd, perchance. So what have we gone from? The axiom of axioms. Double jump. Therefore, the highest aspects functioning within pure intelligence, scope, principle, cause, apprehension, awareness, we can use as descripting eidos of that which is, well, not apprehended without parts. So again, eidos isn't the same because these are intellectually distinguished aspects, but self has to be the cause of aspects. That's the rub. When we experience self, it has to be experienced differently than anything we've experienced in mind or physical senses. It's the cause of those things. But for it to be the cause of axioms, for it to be the cause of principles and causes, it has to have some likeness. So we are describing it. It's going to have scope. It's going to be scope itself. It's the principle of scope. It's the principle of principles. Well, it's the scope of scope. It has scope over all scope. It's the principle of principles. It's the cause of causes. It's the primary principle cause of apprehension. Primary principle of apprehension for everything else that's apprehendable. It's awareness itself. Awareness of awareness, as mind minding mind is nous, awareness of awareness. We are gaining a description on a lower level of what could be applied to the self on a higher level, as above, so below. Double jump. Double jump. But this is dianoia. This is understanding. Dianoia isn't the same as directly apprehending it, nous, and that's not the same as awareness of awareness, or sight seeing itself as sight, but not physical sight. Okay. Ooh. See, I'm quoting the text. Let's find it in the text. This is the description, because this is our goal. This is what it's all for. Once we solve human problems by recognizing the principle which has scope that we can apprehend and use because we have an apprehension of awareness of our apprehension, the root cause of human problems, belief, specifically pathologos, and likewise our excellence that's required to solve problems, understanding, or the logos. Once we've ticked that off, all right, no more war and shit. What are we free to do? Once you've removed your blocks, once you've removed your problems, what will you do with your free time? Double jump. Do a double jump. What allowed you to do that? What is the principle of principles? What is awareness itself that has an awareness of this answer? And we see it in the book. Here we go. Let's read it. The pull to oppose, this is Socrates speaking, the pull to oppose the new. Logos, understanding, dianoia, nous, self. To oppose the new and resist change is a fundamental conservative impulse. Therefore, the fascists are always right-wingers, conservatives. Why? Because belief opposes logos, understanding. As looking forward to meaningful change is an opposite movement. Therefore, the one true spiritual, political party, ruling party of everything should be the opposite one. The Logos party, the Dianoia party. True progressivism. The issue between these forces hinges on whether hinge. Get yourself a date.
Some goons and some gooners and some weirdos.
You're gonna be a gooning weirdo.
Unbelievable sluts these days.
Oh my god, unbelievable sluts on
You could
hinge.
gooners.
You can gooner.
I'm just asking for some gooner men.
Some gooner men. Right. Issue hinges. That was where I did my joke. Hinges on whether the proposals of each benefit the growth and development of soul. So, the Logos party, can our proposals benefit the growth and development of soul? That's the standard. The conservatives, hey, does impoverishing everyone and bombing everyone and concentration camps and ballrooms and bomb bunkers for Trump and Netanyahu, does that benefit everyone? Does it benefit the growth and development of soul? Fuck no. Okay, get a different job, do something else. Just don't lead humanity to Armageddon. Perchance. So that's our standard. Can you show a demonstration that you can, of the knowledge of the ideal, understanding of the parts, based on the growth and development of soul? When it can be demonstrated that only one is true, of course, and reflects a higher truth, then the issue becomes critical. In the struggle over truth, it becomes necessary to say which of these comes closest to revealing and making intelligible as our grasping, our apprehension. How do we make it apprehensible? Just believe me, bro, or understanding verified by higher truth of nous? Making intelligible the truth of the ideas being contested. Where can one confirm, there's our confirmation, what we have explored through a process of reasoning through words and appealing to the kind of experience that comes along with an encounter with intelligence. So there's our reasoning through words, dianoia, encounter with intelligence, nous. Similar to scientific beliefs, but next level up. Evidence and reason, logos, nous. Wait, evidence, yes. Reasoning, reasoned, wait. Evidence is the experience, reasoning is the logic. The experience we verify, the true development or excellence of the soul is through the map, the paradigm, which is nous. And reasoning, we talk about nous through dianoia. So, as we've been saying, similar to understanding, except what we talk about with dianoia understanding isn't physical world stuff. They're non-physical principles. We're talking about the principles of the physical world and using that as our stuff that we're working on. So notice, you never see Scope walking down the street. You never say, hey, Mr. Cause, nice weather we're having. Awareness Joe. So we're not starting with physical sense experience. We're starting with the things that have causal scope over the physical senses. And we're starting with that to its axiom or axioms of axioms. That's dianoia. Well, no, rather. Dianoia applies to the axioms that have scope over the physical world, but they're not physical. The next double jump was to say, well, what's the axioms of axioms? That's the double jump. Anyway, back to the text. So, how do we prove that what we need to overcome conservatism, which is a fundamental opposition to change and growth and development? Well, we have to show what benefits the growth and development of the soul, and that even reflects a higher truth. How do we do that? Reasoning through words and appealing to the kind of experience that comes along with nous, a direct encounter with intelligence, capital I. Next step, this is the double jump. When reasoning can bring with it a quietness of mind, capital M, nous, and one can drop away everything to see what sees, it is then that sight opens itself up to itself, the self. Equally, drowning oneself in empty phrases and catchphrases and bullshit breeds chaos. So, to see what sees, sight opens itself up to itself. Now, colloquially, we think of sight as physical sight, but what we're talking about is awareness. So what we're saying is, hey, for there to be an awareness of the physical world, we need consciousness, experienced as mind knowing itself. But for there to be that mind knowing itself, awareness. What's that? You can have awareness of mind, apprehended, which is the root cause. So, sight opening itself up to itself, or rather, what we are saying, awareness. Awareness seeing what it is that is aware. And the highest word we have to point to or describe what is aware is the word awareness. It has scope, sure. It's the most fundamental principle of everything, sure. It's the cause, sure. But these three here describe how it functions. We want to know itself. So this was its highest functioning: first cause, final cause, principle of principles, scope of scope, axioms of axioms. But it also has to be apprehendable with an awareness of it being apprehendable. Apprehendable is, again, a description of what awareness does. So we're still removed. Therefore, the highest word we seem to have to be able to describe the self, which is the first cause, first principle, apprehendable in the highest possible way, the highest thing we can apprehend. The word that we have, that we're left with, awareness. Can you be aware of awareness itself? Yes. In principle, it's the greatest thing that you can be aware of. knowing the self. Now, we said knowing how to do a wheelie flip has knowing in the colloquial sense with a small k. Knowing nous is knowing with a capital K. So when we talk about knowing the self, we have to do a double capital K. Knowing the self. And there's our same principle of a kind of word that it can be, has scope over all of them as a set. I want to know the self, but I want to have wisdom of the self. But we're talking about the highest expression within that class. Capital K, knowing of the self. Or as we saw, sight opening itself to itself to see what sees, which is the self. But the word we're using is awareness, which distinguishes the different kinds of, so again, once again, sight, you could say, applies to the sight of intelligence, physical sight, senses. But because colloquially, when we use the word sight, we think of shapes and colors, let's use the word awareness. Awareness opening itself up to itself, comma, is my sound effects quiet today? I feel quiet in my ear. Let's see.
Dude, suck my dick.
Oh my goodness.
Everybody should love sluts. I love sluts.
Okay. I agree.
I would scoop the moon in a cup for you.
Keep pressing this thing button.
If you don't know, now you know.
Now I know.
Do a poggers.
All right, I think that's better volume. Stick with that. Opens itself up to the self. That's our goal. We put an end to human problems by looking at its axiom or principle. Yeah, principle. Let's use the word principle. The principle of human problems. Belief in opposition to understanding. The principle of logos in opposition to the pathologos. But the way we are apprehending what we've just described about the self as awareness of awareness is called dianoia. Because we're still in the physical world using understanding, but it's non-physical world or non-physical words used. Therefore, while we've broken down the idea of belief as saying, well, technically you can have belief in axioms or scientific beliefs, it's not really belief because the ruling term is understanding or higher principles that are necessary for even scientific understanding. So therefore, belief normally means what we talk about here. Similarly, when we say understanding, people normally refer to scientific understanding, which uses evidence and reason, but we are taking that a step further. The principle of evidence and reason, or evidence and reason applied to more important things than building nuclear bombs and hand grenades and mousetraps. So we were distinguishing in a similar way that we did with belief. We've got understanding with dianoia, principles causes. How would we have scope? Axioms. And the subclass is scientific understanding, which utilizes those things so those dianoia principles are required for scientific understanding. Required for scientific understanding. See? Similarly, the higher class of belief has understanding or scientific understanding required for scientific belief. You can't believe your mechanic unless your mechanic has done some fucking work understanding how your car works. Similarly, the axioms that even your mechanic uses, even your accountant uses, even your architect uses, 2 + 2 is going to be more than 4. If this wooden block I'm using to make your house is equal to this ruler, and this second wooden block is equal to this ruler, then I can take for granted that these 2 blocks will be equal to themselves. The block A is equal to ruler B, block C is equal to ruler B, therefore A and C are equal. I can use them to keep your house from falling upon your children and crushing them to death, and your dogs. See? Even scientific people, they don't deal with axioms. They have to accept them and use them in their everyday work. Dianoia. So, as dianoia is necessary for scientific understanding, scientific is necessary for scientific belief. So really, belief is in the class we're distinguishing from scientific understanding and dianoia understanding. But in the realm of understanding, dianoia deals with causes, principles, scope, and axioms. And those are the things you have to take for granted for scientific understanding. So those are the 2 kinds of understanding. We're dealing with dianoia. Now, we have just demonstrated dianoia. We have gone through steps of reasoning through understanding, using principles, causes, scopes, and axioms to understand the nature of pure intelligence, the spiritual experience, the penultimate spiritual experience, and we've used a causal principle of as above, so below. You can't prove that. You have to take it for granted. Otherwise, there's no way home. You have to take A and B equals C is B equals E, B. Otherwise, the house will fall down. You can't build houses. You can't do math. You can't drive your car and stop at a traffic light that you haven't seen before. You can't prove them. You have to take them for granted. Otherwise, you can't play. But we want to prove them. Or rather, we want to verify them in our apprehension, direct experience. But you won't be able to reach that unless you reflect on where you are currently at, using the axiomatic principle as above, so below. Otherwise, how will you imagine a greater world or reflect on the possibility of a greater world unless there's some indication of where you're at? But of course, that has to be the case because of causes. Cause makes an effect like its cause. So we can go back to the nature of human problems. All human problems are caused by belief. Why? Because believers try and say this bad thing, killing immigrants, murdering Iranian girls at a primary school, will cause a good thing, freedom, Jesus to come back, the price of eggs and oil going down. Bull fucking shit. They are liars. Believers are liars. They are lying. Why? Because the principle is likeness. To say, hey, this fire will make your drink colder is a lie. A hot thing, fire, causes things to become more hot. Cause and effect. As above, so below. As for the fire, so too for your lovely s'mores that you're roasting on the fire. Not as hot as the fire, it's below, it's the effect. That's why belief can be simply understood as the nature of human problems, because it rejects the axiom or principle of likeness and says doing bad thing causes good thing. It's very, very, very simple. So all propaganda, right-wing news media and podcasters, their job is to say, oh, bad thing, wealth inequality, murder, capitalism, subjugation of women, Epstein Island is actually a good thing. Bullshit. Bullshit. I saw someone say, oh no, but killing people is actually good because it keeps empires alive. And then I saw someone reason through, hang on a second, bullshit. It wasn't the killing of people. All you're saying is that empires often do bad things killing people. The thing that protected the empire was some protection. Having a military army to protect from invading forces. The bad thing, killing other nations, causes a bad thing, the collapse of empires. You fucking idiot. But they're trying to conflate the two. By making the bad appear good. As above, so below. The principle of likeness. Therefore, we used that to see a likeness between regular understanding and what we do here. True understanding, dianoia. Like it, evidence and reason, but not the same. It's the cause. We saw how it was as above, so below. That allowed us to jump. It's kind of like evidence and reason, but the evidence is direct experience of an intelligence, capital I, nous, ousia. And the reasoning is kind of like scientific evidence, but it's reasoning through principles that are always true forever, universal principles. Oh, really? Those things that we actually use to help the world? Universal principles applied universally? Yeah. As above, so below. Equally, we used it for the jump from nous to self. But this is dianoia understanding of self. To recognize it's an awareness of awareness. That's different from the different kind of apprehension of nous or Well, nous would be apprehending mind, apprehending the self. We're understanding, with dianoia understanding it. It's different from knowing the self. But it's our method. Why? Because it gives you the roadmap to ask the questions, to guide your awareness to certain things so that you can trigger a different kind of apprehension. So we talk about dianoia being used to reach nous. And then once we have an experience of what nous is, we could use that kind of jump and say, hang on a second, can we do a similar thing to nous to jump to a different apprehension? So what we've just done is describe the 3 hypotheses we are supposed to be moving into. So the cause of human problems is 4th hypothesis, belief. From the physical world, taking it as your model, which is an imitation of beauty and all of the ADOS beauty. Oh, look how beautiful and just Papa Trump sound or Mummy sounded or whatever. It gives you a false idea of self. So that's the 4th hypothesis, giving you this false triad. Where's our triad? There we go. Yeah, it's a bit messy. The triad of self. You get an idea of self from that experience, states of mind, and as we've been saying, the psyche or state of mind causes human functioning, which is why we're able to understand human problems as the 2 kinds of states of mind we can be in, belief or understanding. Now functioning. So that's 4th hypothesis, a false belief about yourself. That's the root cause of your problems. That manifests as your states of mind that you play out in your relationships, dreams, daydreams, tangents, fantasies, night dreams. That causes your function that keeps you trapped in your loop of fate and suffering. That's 4th hypothesis, belief. The root cause of human problems, therefore, is 4th hypothesis, belief. The true self we just described with understanding, pure awareness of awareness. 1st hypothesis, the self. The higher state of mind we also just described with dianoia, nous. And our highest functioning, we literally just did. So we're doing good. Hooray for you.
Jester Goon Maxed.
You've been Jester Goon Maxed.
Honestly, I say stuff like that because I'm cool.
And we are cool.
I'm too pure.
And too pure.
Everybody should love sluts. I love sluts.
And we love you. Okay. So, for going along with us in this journey. So, dianoia. So notice, 4th hypothesis imitates 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And we've just used 3rd to describe 2nd and 1st. But that's different from apprehending it. So the next thing is, can we use dianoia to reflect on something that would facilitate that apprehension? And then after doing so, can we wonder about how we could do a similar thing to that to facilitate that apprehension of apprehension itself, or awareness of awareness itself? It's one thing to understand it, that's great. 3rd hypothesis. To directly experience it, 2nd, that's our next task. To have awareness of the awareness that has that, 1st. So that's what we're going to do next. So we're holding out a little bit before we tackle Socrates' dialogue on whether or not hell and evil exists, a kind of 4th hypothesis belief that is very powerful in our world and causal and has scope over human injustice. Another demonstration of the dianoia, dialectic, to remove what's false. But also, if we go through it, we'll be able to better understand the difficulty Socrates had, because Socrates said to Jesus, hey, you had that second hypothesis nous experience. This dialogue has pretty much been a reflection on that, so you can add some understanding to it. And then at the end of the book, he said, hey, can you go one step further and say that even this has a cause, which has to be higher still? The cause of that, the first. And Jesus got triggered and jumped into his fourth hypothesis beliefs about God and causing conflict, and I hate you, Socrates, and you're not the chosen people, I'm the chosen people, and fuck you. Fourth hypothesis shit. Belief. So we are going to attempt to do that next time. See if we can use third to wonder about what it would be like to do the second, and then see if we can make the jump to the first. But now we've got an understanding of when we do that, we can be aware of our fourth hypothesis beliefs that will tell us don't do that, do something else, or you're not good enough, or reject that, because we've seen that it's the root cause of problems. And any objection, well, actually, can't some beliefs be good? We've nailed down. No. The kinds of ones you're talking about is a trust of scientific understanding or axioms, which is a trust of dianoia understanding. So it's not really belief, is it? You can't save your belief. Why is that important? Because we've seen that as human beings go through this process, we have, so here we have our pyramid, the great pyramid of philosophy. Our dialectic has scope over perfecting the logos, but also can purify your pathologos. There's our triad of self. You have a pathologos or logos idea of self, mind, and functioning in the fourth hypothesis, or the first, second, and third hypothesis as our ideal triad: self, mind, and functioning. We didn't talk about this today, but it's expressed through your idea of self. Oh, we did a little bit. Your state of mind that causes your human activities and roles, that causes human problems or human excellence. So we just understood it. That's why we were able to do a bumper sticker. Human problems are caused by pathologos and solved by the logos, which is done through the dialectic. Or belief versus understanding, played out in those four stages. The fifth stage is the stages of movement from rejecting this completely, fifth hypothesis, to being attached to our beliefs, developing dianoia, which we did today, the next step for next time, experiencing it in the second hypothesis, and then double jumping to the first. But also we have the 5 stages of counterattacks. As we go through this process of jumping from the third to the second next time, you will find yourself rejecting it. That's normal. But today you've seen not only is it normal, and not only did we get Jesus going through it, it's the cause of human problems. So don't buy into it. Don't buy into it. If you want to be better than fascists in the world, than the Norbies, you will find yourself offering alternatives. Don't do that either. That's a rejection. Notice, all of these are how we reject truth. Conservatism, as we just read. Oh, it's not on the board. We just read Socrates say it. To reject the new and the true is the principle of conservatism. Adapting the new to the old, still holding on to your old beliefs, trying to keep the new and the old, unify them together until ultimately going along with it. Accepting these principles and truth, accepting them to play. so you can learn them and verify them. So we're going to go through that next time, which gives us the triad, the pyramid of soul. The time. Yeah, gotta do it next time. The time. So, just as with Jesus, we are going to attempt to use an understanding to facilitate that insight into the second, and then see if we can double jump to the first. But we also have to be aware of our fourth hypothesis, those 5 stages of interpretation. Oh no, but not me, but not now, but no, I'm not good enough. I'm a small bean, I'm a bad noodle. To that we say,
Fucking bitch, pussy ass fucker.
don't be a bitch, pussy ass fucker. And of course, 5th hypothesis is to reject that that's even possible. Don't even do that.
Unbelievable.
Sluts these days.
Unbelievable.
Anything for a click, no matter how stupid or demented or misleading.
Oh my goodness. It's not just for clicks.
What is this? The damn Opie and Anthony? Okay, whatever.
It's not
They're completely
gonna be-
lying to you. They're completely.
Jesus Christ, Emma, this is not Opie and Anthony or whatever the hell.
You know what? Suck my dick.
Oh my goodness. So notice, second and first hypothesis, different kind of apprehension. Intelligence itself, and for the second, the penultimate and the ultimate, awareness of even awareness. Sight opening itself up to see itself as the self. I was going to do it today, but we're out of time. Big stream already. But yeah, worthwhile to nail down for even the haters who want to save their own personal beliefs. No place for beliefs. What you're really saving is a trust and understanding that you are demanding of the leader. And if you want it to lead your soul, then you better understand it. And by the way, even understanding requires axioms. And if you are here as a person, your job is to understand those axioms and use them to know the self. And we will go through that next time. See if we can ask a few questions. And then maybe give birth to some things to wonder about. And then we're going to jump back into the text and see if any of that's reflected in the dialogue, the final dialogue with Socrates and Jesus. So yeah, bit of a different stream today. A bit of a summary kind of a thing, but worth doing because, you know, once we understand the problem of reality is belief, then we might say, well, what about some beliefs are okay? Can't they be in alignment? No, that's really understanding. And by the way, we're not talking about just understanding. We're talking about principles and causes and axioms. That if you are loving understanding, you'll realize you've been seeking anyway. Universal health equality, universal health access, universal equality. And all of the problems we see in the world is just a demonstration of, this is what happens if you don't have universal principles. One rule for you, one rule for them. One rule for the Palestinians, one rule for Netanyahu. Can't fucking allow that. Wake up, human beings. Think about principles. Can't solve problems without principles, causes which have scope that you can apprehend and have awareness of so you can use. But what are those things? What exactly are those things? Principle itself, scope itself, cause itself, apprehension itself, and ultimately, what is awareness itself? That's something for you to think about until the next episode. Say, that's it. That's all we're after, right? Really, there's no other method than looking at awareness. The rub is, what are you looking for? If it's beyond the physical world of shapes and colors. Let's go into that next time. Thank you for joining me. I hope you had fun, and I hope to see you next time. We're going to ask some interesting questions. I'll see you then. And then the noise. There we go.